Welcome to Satellite TV News. You're watching the News Hour with Angus Scott in London. It's Tuesday the 9th of May. These are the main headlines from around the world. Putin's victory parade overshadowed by angry Wagner mercenaries and foundering assaults in Ukraine. The US to fast-track $500 million of arms to Taiwan, infuriating China. Warnings that up to 80% of jobs will disappear as AI takes over the workplace. Will Made in China soon become Made in India? A global shift in manufacturing seems to be unfolding. And Virgin Galactic is to take to the stars as it resumes commercial flights to space. Welcome to the News Hour. These are today's main stories in detail. President Vladimir Putin is set to preside over Victory Day celebrations today, overshadowed by Russia's battlefield failures in Ukraine, confrontation with the West and fear of new attacks at home. But in a major coup for the Kremlin, at least 6 post-Soviet leaders, including the Prime Minister of Armenia and the President of Kazakhstan, are expected to attend the military parade that fates the Soviet victory over Nazi Germany in 1945. Putin is expected to address thousands of troops standing at attention in Moscow's Red Square, amid ramped-up security. In the meantime, Yevgeny Prigozhin, chief of the Russian mercenary group Wagner, issued a series of blistering profanity-laced videos earlier, blaming Russian ministers for withholding ammunition amid talk of infighting and rivalries. Overnight, it's reported that of 25 cruise missiles launched by Russia, 23 were shot down by Ukrainian forces. The US is to fast-track $500 million of weaponry to Taiwan this year. The self-ruled democratic island lives under constant threat of an invasion by China, which claims Taiwan as part of its territory to be seized one day by force if necessary. With Beijing increasing its sabre-rattling towards the island, Taiwan's key ally, the United States, in September approved the Taiwan Policy Act, providing US security assistance to the tune of $4.5 billion over 4 years, a move that's infuriated Beijing. Taiwan remains one of the key potential flashpoints of the future between China and the West. Artificial intelligence could replace 80% of human jobs in the coming years, but this is a good thing according to a leading AI guru. Scientist and famed robot creator Ben Goertzel, founder of a research group launched to create artificial intelligence with human cognitive abilities, is against trying to control AI development, which he does not perceive as a threat. Believing almost all paperwork jobs will soon be automated by AI, this will free people up for other work. But he does acknowledge the transition period as people's jobs become obsolete will likely cause large social issues. In a move that signals a potential axis shift of global manufacturing, Taiwanese electronics giant Foxconn, who manufactures Apple's iPhone, has acquired 13 million square feet of land on the outskirts of Indian tech hub Bengaluru as it looks to diversify production away from China. Both Foxconn and Apple are seeking to diversify away from China, where much of their manufacturing is based, after strict COVID policies in recent years and ongoing diplomatic tensions with the United States hurt production. Apple's expanding manufacturing in India is a boost to Modi's Make in India strategy, under which he has urged foreign businesses to manufacture goods in the South Asian nation. Canada is struggling to control wildfires that have forced thousands to flee, halted oil production and razed towns, with the western province of Alberta calling for federal help. Some 30,000 people were ordered to leave their homes over the past 3 days, as nearly 100 fires flared across the province, including 27 that are now out of control. Officials said 390,000 hectares had already burnt, patients and long-term care residents had to be relocated, and many schools were now closed. Oil firms announced temporary shutdowns of operations, slashing production by more than 125,000 barrels of oil per day. Southern African countries have agreed to deploy forces to help quell violence in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. A special summit of the 16-block Southern African Development Community which includes South Africa, Angola and Tanzania, backed the deployment to restore peace and security in eastern DRC. Armed groups have plagued much of mineral-rich eastern DRC for 3 decades, a legacy of regional wars that flared in the 1990s and the 2000s. The M23 militia has captured swathes of territory in North Kivu since 2021, which has now displaced up to 1 million people. The Israeli army has killed 3 leaders of the Islamic Jihad militant group overnight in airstrikes on Gaza, which left a dozen dead in the Hamas-controlled Palestinian territory. Hamas claimed that women and children were among the dead. Israel said it had targeted 3 leaders of Islamic Jihad, which it considers a terrorist organisation, and had hit weapon manufacturing sites belonging to the group. Airstrikes from 40 aircraft began after 2 a.m. and lasted nearly 2 hours. The strikes come after Islamic Jihad announced a truce around Gaza following a flare-up in violence after the death in Israeli custody of a hunger striker with ties to the militant group. The Canadian government is expelling a Chinese diplomat allegedly involved in a plot to intimidate an opposition lawmaker and his relatives living in Hong Kong. Toronto-based diplomat Zhao Wei has been given 5 days to leave the country. Canada's spy service indicated that in 2021, opposition Conservative lawmaker Michael Chong and relatives were targeted by China after he criticised Beijing's human rights record. This is the latest in a string of foreign interference attempts allegedly made by the Chinese government in Canada in recent years, including efforts to meddle in the 2019 and 2021 federal elections. The sudden popularity of ChatGPT and other AI tools is injecting urgency into Europe's drive to regulate the sector, which this week is to be voted on by EU lawmakers. The EU aims to be the global pioneer in creating a comprehensive legal framework that would rein in possible online harm, while still protecting innovation in the field of artificial intelligence. Faced with the risk of AI being used to make dangerous content, manipulate opinion, conduct mass surveillance, or other perils yet to emerge, many experts have called for a pause in development whilst risks are assessed properly. Iran has hanged 2 men on charges of spreading blasphemy on social media, prompting US condemnation and accusations from Amnesty International. The Islamic Republic has reached a new low in a spree of executions. The 2 men, convicted of desecrating the Quran and insulting the Prophet Muhammad, were hanged yesterday morning in a prison in the central city of Iraq. Their execution came as concern intensifies about a spike in executions in Iran this year, after 2022 saw more people hanged than in any year since 2015, according to rights groups. An ongoing drought and soaring temperatures have unleashed fears of an olive catastrophe in Spain, the world's largest producer of olive oil. Rainfall since October has been 25% lower than normal across Spain, and 50% lower in most of Andalusia, where reservoirs are at 25% capacity. An early heatwave saw record temperatures in April. Spain supplies 50% of the world's olive oil and exports close to €3 billion worth every year. And prices, already rising, are expected to rise further as the shortage works into the global supply chain. And finally, space tourism company Virgin Galactic has announced it is resuming flights with a mission this month, its first in nearly 2 years, and the launch of commercial trips in June. The Unity 25 mission will take place in late May, with 4 company employees on board, whilst 800 tickets for future commercial flights have already been sold at prices of up to $450,000 each. Unlike other companies that use vertical launch rockets, Virgin Galactic uses a carrier aircraft that takes off from a runway, gains high altitude, and drops a rocket-powered plane that soars into space before gliding back to Earth. During the 90-minute journey, passengers experience a few minutes of weightlessness in the spaceplane's cabin. You've been watching the News Hour on Satellite TV, and you can find more stories in detail on our channel SatNet News. So it's worth clicking on the subscribe button to make sure that you get to see stories as they're broadcast. And don't forget, if you have any comments or any opinions on any of our news stories, you can comment below or drop us a direct message at message@satellitetv.com, and we would love to hear from you. In the meantime, thanks for watching. For Satellite TV News, I'm Angus Scott in London.